everyone, and welcome to the Green and Slimy Comic Book Vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And today, Dan and I are going to review a miniseries from 1993 called Venom: Lethal Protector. This is a 6-issue miniseries that was on the heels of the the giant extreme popularity of Venom. And Dan,
yes,
what'd you think of this?
I don't know, man. I felt like this was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
It was just sort of strange, like, this idea of Venom being a superhero doesn't really work for me. Like, just specifically with this version of it, because it's exemplified even in this series, like, the problems I have with it, like, just premise-wise.
Mm-hmm.
This guy comes in who is bitter because Venom killed his son when he was breaking out of prison the second time he went to go fight Spiderman. And he's like, yeah, you killed my son. How can you be a superhero?
Prepare to die! Oh.
And Venom's like, well, I was trying to break out of prison, that makes it okay. He's like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, he didn't even seem all that remorseful.
Yeah, and then, you know, we have him pages later, like, risking his life for these homeless people that he just met, that are, because they're innocents and all that stuff, like, I don't know. And he was doing things like with the symbiote hosts. There was the 5 other symbiotes where, I mean, you could argue maybe they're not innocent because they signed up for that symbiote testing program or whatever, but like...
But he doesn't know anything about them!
Right, he risks their lives. And Spider-Man's like, you probably shouldn't do that, I mean...
Yeah, I feel like Venom's entire characterization in this is a tagline. The whole lethal protector idea is simply, we've got to come up with a way to make Venom sort of work as a superhero. And that's difficult to do because what everybody likes about him is, well, that he wants to kill Spider-Man. And it's kind of amusing that Spider-Man seems to kind of be the audience in this. He's like, I thought your whole deal was you wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
And he says that over and over again. He's just like, wow, Venom's acting a bit out of character, isn't he? I mean, that really seems to be Peter Parker's whole thing in this. The one thing I really did like about this is I think that Spider-Man was entirely in character. The whole series, it was kind of pointless, but he wasn't as awkward as Venom was.
Oh, definitely not. Did you find Venom to be a little jokey in here?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, with the dialogue, I was constantly distracted by the fact that 98% of the dialogue was exposition.
Yeah, half of the first issue is recapping things that happened previously. The story didn't begin until halfway through. And,
you know, I think that a lot of 90s Marvel and you know, I think DC too has this problem where okay, look, if it's a miniseries, I really think that it's okay for us to assume that the reader has read the rest of the miniseries.
Right.
Like, I think that's okay, you know? And each issue of this is written like a one-shot, where it's trying to... I mean, like, you know, it's a series, and there's a beginning and a middle and an end to it, but it's trying to make sure that it doesn't lose anybody. And I'm sorry, but that old adage that Stan Lee always had of every comic book is somebody's first comic book is not entirely accurate. And even if it is, I feel like it's okay to be like, to have maybe a thing at the beginning that's like, this is a miniseries, and you're going to be lost if you don't read the rest of it, because it's only 6 issues.
Right. I felt like it would have been okay if they, you know, mentioned when things come up that connect to stuff that happened in previous issues, you can do the editor's note things, like, you know, see last issue if you want to know what happened here.
Yeah,
Instead,
exactly.
It's sort of spelled out for the reader, like, you know, everything that they need to know to understand.
Or do what Marvel does now with miniseries most of the time, which is they'll give you a blurb on the first page before the comic actually starts that recaps last issue, where they'll give you, like, you know, 7 or 8 sentences that says here's everything that happened. I find that very helpful. I'll read that sometimes, even if I've already read the last issue, just to refresh myself.
Me too. And I mean,
I don't know why it took us that long to invent that.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I don't know. We were talking about the artwork a little bit before, and before we started recording.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, It was sort of strange to me. You said you didn't notice the shift between Bagley and then the other artists who worked on this, right?
Yeah, I really didn't. First of all, Bagley clearly is a better artist now than he was back then. I just want to throw that out there. I don't think this is anything like his best work. I think that there are some really cool panels in this, but I think that there are places where he totally skimps out and like doesn't fully draw characters just because he puts them far enough in the background and doesn't think he needs to and things like that. I don't think he does that kind of thing as much now.
Yeah, he definitely did that. There's a scene I was thinking of when you said that, particularly like when Venom jumps into the room with the model for what's going to be done to the park by that evil tycoon guy.
Yeah, he's like two colors and barely can you see his like his teeth. Like
his teeth aren't even drawn. It's just a big white space.
Exactly. No, what really distracted me with the art all the way through this, Dan, and I think maybe the reason that it didn't occur to me that there was a shift, and yeah, now that you mention that, I think you are much more keen on art than I am, Dan, and I think what happened for me by issue 4, and the reason I didn't notice it was because and I mean, I think you're right. I think the art isn't as good later on. Now that you say that, but I was so distracted by backgrounds. Did you notice the sheer number of action panels where the background was just yellow lines?
I didn't really notice the backgrounds, to be honest.
Okay, now are you reading? Let me ask you a question. Are you reading this in trade or singles?
I have it in singles.
Okay, look at the cover for issue 5. Notice anything?
Yeah, it's just...
There are at least a dozen panels in every issue that look just like that cover, and I think that it is so hilarious that they did it with a cover.
Yeah, that is funny. But it's weird too, because that's sort of. Did you notice it consistently throughout the whole series, like even when they changed artists?
Let's see. Let's pop over and open issue 6, shall we?
Okay.
Issue 6. Do we have any giant... And you know, one thing I noticed, too, was that for a while I thought it was just Venom. I thought maybe Bagley was thinking... Or maybe, you know what? Maybe it's not fair to blame it on Bagley. Maybe it was the color artist, you know? Maybe... But what I was thinking was, at the beginning, I was like, maybe he just was trying to pick a color that looked really good in the background for Venom's color scheme. So he went with yellow because it's a good clash, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then... There's some place in here where the same thing is done with just Spiderman on a panel. Yeah. And I was like, all right. I'm going through 6 here, and I'm not seeing it in 6.
Okay, so maybe it was just a Bagley thing, because he did all the covers.
Well, feel free to change the subject, but I'm going to look for it. I gotta know. Okay. Because issue 5 has it on the cover, and he didn't draw that one.
Yeah, that's weird.
Unless he drew the cover.
He did. He did draw all the covers.
Oh, he drew all the covers. Okay, so he must have just been in love with that yellow
yeah,
background.
So.
I hate to make fun of him. He's an artist I like a lot, but that's hilarious.
Artist. Yeah. I definitely think this wasn't his best work in terms of stuff that I've seen from him before, especially with Ultimate and some of his other Spider-Man stuff.
It's not in 5. That's so funny. It's on the cover, but it's not. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What did you think of Venom's character arc, or lack thereof, that happened here?
Before we get to that, can I just say that, once again on the art real quick in case we don't get back to it, I didn't love... Okay, it's in 4. Mm-hmm. It is the yellow thing is definitely in 4.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm making a big deal out of this. But it's funny, sorry. Anyway...
That's a totally valid thing. I mean, if... I want art to have backgrounds. That's
yeah, and you know, I get it. This was 1993. That's really indicative of the styles at the time. I think that Liefeld is somewhat to blame for that. I think that when he got popular, he was doing a lot of that, so a lot of people were copying him and going, "Oh well, if Liefeld got that famous and he doesn't have to draw backgrounds, I don't have to either."
Yeah.
And so, but one thing I wanted to mention is even though I thought that there were places that Bagley was kind of cutting corners. I did think that his character designs all worked, and this is my favorite design of Venom. 90s, early mid 90s Venom is my favorite for a couple of reasons. I really like the face I really like the build where it's not the big giant shoulders that topple over his head, like he's hunched over constantly. And I like a Venom that has a form, that has a shape, that isn't like an amorphous blob, because he's not Carnage, you know? And I still even like Carnage to have at least somewhat of a shape, you know? And I think when I said that on camera, I accidentally did like the woman shape thing. He wouldn't be shaped like that, you know? But anyway, I like Carnage to have kind of a shape too. But this is Bagley's being really faithful to how McFarlane drew Venom.
Yeah, definitely.
And so there are a lot of things here, yeah, and I love the way he does the tongue. One of the cool details I noticed, Dan, is there's a place where he's crawling upside down, and the green slime coming out of his mouth is all over his front.
That's awesome.
And that was cool. I liked that. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that I think the designs all work. Anyway,
definitely.
As far as
the designs too.
As far as his character arc, yeah, he doesn't have one. This is about Venom. Well, he sort of does. What he learns at the end is that he actually can kind of sort of be a superhero. I mean, that's kind of what his character arc is about, because at first he's being he tries to save this kind of generic underground secret society. And by the way, how many of those are there in 90s Marvel Comics, right? Generic underground secret societies of people that we don't care about now and won't later. These people who just live underground, and there's people trying to run them out, and they've kind of taken over this city that's, in case you haven't read the book, they're kind of trying to they've taken over this city that's left from 1906 when the Great Earthquake happened. And it's been left completely intact, but nobody knows it's there. And these people discovered it, and they were like homeless people, and now they live there, and they have their own like secret society down there. And Venom saves them from these big digger robots that are trying to kill them, and then they have this vote with their council to decide whether or not Eddie Brock Venom gets to stay, and they end up voting him out. And so at first it seems like you're getting this idea that no matter what Venom does, he's never going to be able to be a superhero. Reminds me a little bit of Deadpool. And then by the end, he and Spider-Man save them together, and then he is finally accepted by that society, and now he's there to protect them. They almost take him in like their own personal bodyguard, in a way.
Yeah, similar to how the symbiotes were going to be used by that company in some capacity. It wasn't really clear how they were going to be used, but
yeah, me neither. I love that line. They'd be the perfect cops. I was like, how do you figure?
Yeah. They're murdering... Well, no, those people might not be psychopaths because we don't really know anything about them, but they have the capacity to murder people. I just thought it was strange that he learns that he can be a superhero, but at the same time, like, the book is having him do things that are clearly indicative of him not being capable of being a superhero, and he still succeeds. And it's just really weird and contrary. I didn't think it fit together very well.
No, he didn't at all. And that's why I say that he had a character arc, but it wasn't an arc. It was like he had a place that he got to, but there weren't things that happened that got him there.
Right.
Now, I said that Spider-Man was in character. There's one thing Spider-Man does toward the end of this. You reminded me of it. Oh, I mean, you go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
Oh, the thing I was thinking of... I don't know if it was... We might not be talking about the same thing, but...
oh, that's okay. We can have multiple examples.
Yeah, Venom, when he stops the rich tycoon guy and he has to go through the fire, Spider-Man's like, Venom, how could you put yourself through that? And Venom's like, well, you're Spider-Man, wouldn't you do the same thing? He's like, well, yeah, I guess so.
I was waiting for Spider-Man to go, yeah, but I was expecting that at the last minute you'd jump up and try to kill me! No, the thing I was thinking of, that's great, I'm glad you brought that up, I didn't think of it. The one I was going to say is how Venom, who has proven that he's still okay with killing people, you know, the book's called Lethal Protector, so he only kills people that he thinks deserve it. He says that. Again, he's got a lot in common with Deadpool. Or at least this characterization of him where he's not a villain anymore. Where, like, you know, he kills people he thinks don't deserve it, and we're supposed to sympathize with him because we might not would do what he does, but he's still at least going after the bad guys, kind of. What cracked me up at the end is when Spider-Man says, "Hey Venom, I'll fight these not as important people. You go take care of the bad guy." Did you notice that? And I was just sitting there going, "No, wait a minute, Spider-Man. What if he kills him?"
Yeah, and then at the end, Spider-Man's like, "Oh, I'm so glad Venom didn't kill him."
Yeah, and I was like, "You put him in the perfect position to do that." Like,
Yeah.
So maybe that was the one place where Spider-Man was completely out of character.
Yeah, there was just a lot of weird contrivances in here, and that's one of the things that I know that I didn't pick up on, but I did pick up on other ones.
Oh yeah, well there were so many.
Yeah, like, you know when they say that there's a point in the story where they artificially age the Venom symbiote so it gives birth to a spawn.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And they make a big deal about how it's the last son of Venom, and they put the symbiote on a girl, which is weird, because she'd be the last daughter of Venom. And then...
Oh, that's a good point.
5 more of them show up.
How did I not think of that?
5 more of them show up randomly after that was supposed to be the last one.
I wondered about that, yeah. It's like they did the entire publication history of Superman in, like, two issues. Last Son of Krypton. Nope! We can have more with no real explanation.
Yeah, it was just like, what's going on? And then they have that machine used on the other symbiotes later, and it, like, kills them. The same machine that they used on Brock to get the spawn out of him kills the other symbiotes.
It can just do anything they want to do. Well, wasn't it that machine did various things, though, and that they had to press the right button, and then they pressed the wrong one? Or no, he pressed the aging button, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, here's one. This is awful. You and I don't usually just sit here and nitpick a book, but while we're on the subject, what was with... Well, okay, we're on the subject of weird contrivances. Here's a weird contrivance. What was with the bubble that they have Eddie Brock in, where like it's this sonic bubble, because the Venom symbiote is affected by loud noises, which, by the way, they felt the need to tell us in exposition no less than 25 times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Venom. Yeah, I got it, guys. I'm reading your book. Like,
and Venom gets very lucky almost every time when people hit him with sonic weapons. They take the time to do like 3 panels worth of exposition, and then Venom goes, "Ha ha ha! You gave me time to recover by talking."
There's even a place where Venom feels the need to explain to Spider-Man that both sound and fire affect him. And I was just waiting for Spider-Man to be like, "Dude, I used to have that symbiote. I know all about this. I was affected by both of those things myself." I feel like we're being brutal, but this is not a very good book. What was with the part where Eddie Brock is in that sonic bubble, and he has this brilliant idea? Wait a minute. If I don't have the symbiote on, if I just become Eddie Brock, I won't be affected by this sonic stuff. Like, they didn't think of that, and then he just kind of like busts out of it, and then the bad guy berates. I don't remember his name because these people are really generic. The bad guy that's in charge of this whole operation berates the guy running the machine for not having it at a high enough setting for a human being with Olympian strength. It's like, how low would it have to be? Like, really, is there that big... I mean, okay, I get that I'm sort of a scrawny guy, Dan. I'm not the biggest person in the world, but is there that big of a difference with sound of a physical person breaking through it between me and a guy with Olympian strength?
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought what they were going to do with that was Eddie Brock was going to take the symbiote off completely. I was like, he's bonded to it, guys. That won't work.
Yeah, well, at least I didn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that does kind of not make sense. I never really thought of that before.
I just thought that was weird. I was like, well, it was just so goofy. It was like, he's like, you don't understand, Eddie Brock has Olympian strength.
Yeah.
Although, I did like that that was brought up, because, I mean, I want to give credit where it's due. It had never really occurred to me before, and I guess it should have, why Venom is so much more bulky in the symbiote than Spider-Man was.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
it's because they're a bonded symbiotic life form, and Eddie Brock is built like a tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so Venom looks like that, and he's going to be built differently depending on who he's bonded to. So I like that when way later on when they bonded him to Flash, he's not that bulky anymore. Because Flash is big. I mean, he's bulkier than Spider-Man, but he's not Eddie Brock big. He doesn't look like he can bench press a tractor or anything.
Right.
Anyway, I just want to throw that out there because I think it's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some of the other things that bothered me, I don't know if these things bothered you as much as they did me, but
yeah.
the first big thing that sort of bothered me with this is they give us Eddie Brock's childhood, and there was at the end of the issue before that happened, I was like, wow, this has the potential to be really interesting. So we get to see Eddie Brock in his childhood, how he became this sort of twisted human being. And they give him Harry Osborn's backstory verbatim.
Oh, I didn't think of it like that, but now that you're right.
It was so weird.
Just like, oh yeah, his father was really hard on him.
Yeah, his father didn't pay attention to him. He was buried in his work, and the mother died, and that's what made their relationship distant.
I didn't realize the whole his mother died. I mean, I knew his mother died, but I didn't realize that was so much of a part of Osborn's character.
Yeah, sort of, because Norman, that was like the only person that he ever really connected with, like Eddie Brock's dad did with Eddie's mother, and then when she died, that's when he became cold and sort of uninterested in Harry.
Wow. That's hilarious. I mean, it would be bad enough if it was from somebody else's book, but it's Spider-Man.
Yeah. I was like, wow, now we have two of the same character.
I've only got one more thing I wanted to bring up, unless you've got more stuff.
The other thing I wanted to mention was that guy that has this task force that's the cops from Judge Dredd.
Oh yeah, it kind of is.
He brings them in, and then he never shows up again. He just kind of they just kind of bring him in, so Venom can fill panel time by fighting things, and then he goes away. There's no resolution to that. I mean, maybe because this was sort of an ongoing series of minis that gets addressed later. I don't know. I was sort of so uninterested in this, I didn't continue. But
I've got them all if you want to.
Oh yeah.
It might be fun. Well,
yeah, I think it might be.
Dan, the weird thing about the minis is that it was basically a monthly that was published as miniseries.
Yeah,
because
that's what I mean. It's so strange.
The very next month, and it says this at the end, it's like Funeral Pyre is on sale next month, and I'm like, why didn't you just make it a monthly?
Yeah.
I don't understand. But one thing I thought was strange, and this is the last thing I wanted to bring up, one thing that I thought was really kind of strange, well, besides the fact that I don't understand why this had to be in a Venom book by itself anyway, since Spider-Man is here and is in on all 6 issues, and kind of has his own character arc, I was sort of like, why isn't this just in Amazing?
Yeah, and you don't even get into Eddie Brock's head that much.
No, you really don't.
You get into Spider-Man's personal life much more than you do Venom's. Like, you have scenes of him talking with Mary Jane and stuff in here.
Yeah, I love that first scene where they're on the phone and Spider-Man is just like, I'm trying to find Venom, but I can't find him. And she's like, good luck.
Yeah.
And then, like, that was it. And then, and then you had that panel where, like, she gets off the phone and she turns around and she's sad, like, oh, we got to have this, like, obvious characterization of Mary Jane, like, being, fearful for Peter's life. I mean, I guess that's not fair because Venom was, like, she was obviously a big part of the initial Venom arc.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where, she's obviously terrified of Venom. But still, I just thought that, maybe that was just a nod, but I thought it was kind of odd. She's there for, like, 2 panels just so that she can go, oh, man, Venom, I hate that guy. But anyway, I just think that it's odd that they, like I said, that they felt the need to keep doing these in minis, and that they make such a big deal at the end of this because when they have that solicitation for the next book, they say they basically tell you they basically like try to tell you exactly what the book is going to be about, because they're like oh man, Venom it kills people even when he doesn't mean to, and like he poisons everything he touches, and I'm like, okay. So basically what we're doing is we're combining two characters in the Marvel Universe that both already fulfill these functions. And also contradicting the ending of this book, because the ending of this mini pretty much is, no, Venom can be a superhero. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, yeah, no, he can't, but we'll tell you why later. You've got Punisher, who kills people because he thinks they deserve it. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much all Venom's doing, but they're pretending like it's new. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Deadpool, who, to be fair, is brand new at this point and hasn't gone through all this. So I'm saying this retroactively, but again, I really think that and maybe I'm just saying this because I've been reading a lot of classic Deadpool lately, mm-hmm. but I feel like part of the reason that Venom doesn't work as a superhero is because later on, we had the Deadpool book in the mid-90s, which did all this a whole lot better.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, it actually really did, and it's not my favorite thing, but, like, he's at least characterized pretty consistently, and his whole thing is, he poisons everything he touches, and he keeps trying to be a superhero, and he's not really built for that. So the idea, so it's like the opposite here. The idea is, we've got a guy who's supposed to be a villain, he's not built for being a superhero, but they're trying to force it to work.
Yeah, and I think that's the root of the problem, obviously, with why this doesn't work. I mean, I expected this to be much better than it was, because Michelinie wrote this, the guy that co-created Venom with McFarlane, the guy that did all those great stories on Amazing Spider-Man in the 80s, with the introduction of Eddie Brock and all the other stories he did. I was like, if any guy's going to be able to pull this concept off, it's going to be him. Yeah,
and it's so strange because it feels... I'm sorry, some of the writing in this feels kind of juvenile.
Yeah, it does. It feels very phoned in to me.
And how many panels are just, like, money shots of Venom standing or jumping?
Oh, there's multiple ones, like, in the same issue of him standing towards not the camera, but it's focused on him.
At least twice, you've got a point. You've got points where Eddie Brock, not having the symbiote on right now, is like I mean, he doesn't say this, but it's like, right now I'm Eddie Brock, but when you turn the Venom.
Yeah, and then it's like the title text, like in the word bubble, and he's just like has his mouth open and he's like leaning over.
I love how people are able to talk in cool texts in comic books.
Yeah,
and I'm not making fun of this series for doing that. A lot of people even to this day do it, and I think it's great when somebody when somebody just is like Spawn, but I'm saying it in the Spawn logo. With this, what was really funny to me though is there was some like random bystander who did it.
Yeah.
Just this guy in the first or second issue who's just like standing off to the side, and he goes, Venom! And I'm like, oh, you got that power too! It's not just protagonists anymore!
Yeah, some of the bystanders in this book were hilarious. There was the scene where Spider-Man was fighting the long-haired symbiote lady in the mall, and she throws an innocent bystander at a window, and he goes, "Oh no, I'm flying towards a window!"
Yeah! And I was like, can we not tell looking at the panel?
I know. And then Spider-Man's like, "No, you're not." And he's like, "Oh, thank you, Spider-Man."
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that cracked me up too. I remember reading that and going, that's you don't need exposition there. Right. Especially coming out of the guy's mouth. It would have almost been better if there was a narration box that said, and then he flew toward the window.
Yeah.
This is a period in comics, of course, that was using a lot more thought balloons than we use now. And to be fair, there were definitely books coming out of this time that didn't use thought balloons at all. I mean, we had gotten out of it with some things, even by 93.
McFarlane's Spider-Man run that he wrote by himself was all narration boxes.
Yeah, and I felt like a lot of this stuff wouldn't have felt as corny, and I'm going to say corny, if it had been in narration boxes instead of thought balloons, because if it's in a narration box, you can at least imagine that maybe it's a person reflecting on it later. or even if it's in present tense, it's not as strange because you're not thinking time as much. I don't know what it is about just having it in a thought balloon, but when a guy's just standing there or swinging around or whatever he's doing, or in a fight scene with these, like, you know, book-long thought balloons, you're going, he doesn't have time to think about all this. But when it's in narration boxes, you know, it's like a book where we're just, you know, getting it from his perspective, and you want some internal monologue.
Right, and you can split up the panels better because you can have, well, you can split up the narration better between panels. You don't have to have the entire thought bubble in one panel with the narration boxes. You can split it up. You can have like one sentence in each panel when they're fighting.
I'm going to suggest
that's why
something.
I think the narration boxes work a little bit better.
I'm going to suggest something that's maybe not fair, but given that we have so many panels in these books that don't have backgrounds, I think the reason they use so many thought balloons and they have so much words on a page in general is to fill up white space.
That's a grand possibility.
I think a lot of it is just, well, we don't feel like drawing any buildings or anything. So they have these token places where they'll go, see, you can tell it's San Francisco because we drew the bridge, you know, and then the rest of it, they're in San Francisco in this, right?
Yeah. I mean, what you just said about them filling space with the thought bubbles, I felt like that with the story, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Did this need to be 6 issues? I feel like I could have done this in 3.
I think it could have been in 2, because the story starts in the first one, a bunch of crap happens for 4 issues, and then in the last one, the plot comes back.
Well, I feel like we've hammered this enough, Dan.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, hey, Dan, thanks a lot for reviewing this with me. If you can get your hands on some of those other Venom minis, I think it might be fun to read them, and we can see if some of them are better than this.
I can probably find most of them for pretty cheap, right? How many were there?
At least 8 or 9.
Oh, okay.
There are lots of them. Enough that I had to alphabetize them, and there's quite a few, you know, letters.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, there were quite a few of these. You know, you had Separation Anxiety, you had Funeral Pyre, you had The Trial of Venom. You know, you had things like that.
Cool. I definitely want to check out the Funeral Pyre one to see how that one went with the Punisher.
You had another one that was like a Venom versus Carnage mini.
Does Venom team up with someone in every mini?
I think he does.
Huh.
But I haven't actually read all of them. I have them because I collect Venom, but I haven't actually sat down and read all of them. But yeah, if you can get your hands on them, I think that might be fun. And I mean, like, I don't want to go into all of these expecting that we'll hate them.
Right.
I didn't do that with this. I just, you know, I read it and it had been a really long time, and I was like, this is not what I remember.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I read it a while ago, and I remember not being too impressed with it, but it was sort of like when I had first started reading comics, when I had first read it, and I was like, oh, maybe I just wasn't a seasoned enough reader to appreciate it or whatever, because I had initially read the Michelini Venom stuff and not really cared for it too much, and then recently went back and reread it and loved it, so I figured, you know, maybe there's something there that I missed, but I had the same impression, or a worse one.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching the Comic Book Vault, and Dan, thanks again. I'll have you on again probably next week.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me, man.
And everybody remember that the Comic Book Vault is a vast and wondrous wonderland of comic books that you can donate things to if you'd like to. If you want to send us anything to review on the Comic Book Vault, just send it to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Please personal message me first, see if I have it already. And thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And we'll see you next time.